Carrie Ann Jopek was born on August 17, 1968, and lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with her mother, Carolyn Talsignant, her stepfather, Fred, and her younger sister, Maggie. By the time she was in 7th grade, Carrie was known for being artistic, smart, and strong-willed, a good kid at heart, though she often clashed with authority figures, particularly Fred, who was the disciplinarian in the home. On March 16, 1982, 13-year-old Carrie was suspended from Kosciuszko Middle School for walking the halls without a pass. The school sent her home around 1:30 p.m., just a short block away from where she lived, but she never arrived. As hours passed without any sign of her, Carolyn initially assumed Carrie had gotten herself suspended on purpose to attend a party at her best friend, Robin Mant's house, which was directly across the street. When night fell and Carrie still hadn't come home, Carolyn began knocking on doors and calling her friends, but no one claimed to know where she was. At 11 p.m., neighbors gathered to search the streets, and the next morning, Carrie was reported missing. Police were dismissive, suggesting she was likely a runaway, a common response at the time for missing teens, especially those seen as rebellious. As the investigation dragged on with few leads, suspicion briefly turned toward Carrie's stepfather, Fred, due to a freshly laid concrete patio in their backyard. Ground-penetrating radar was even used to search beneath it, but nothing was found. Investigators also took an interest in Robin Mant's older brother, Johnny. Carrie had recently told her mother that Johnny, then 17, had shown interest in her. He was known for supplying drugs and alcohol to other teens, and some suspected he hosted the party where Carrie was last seen. Still, police couldn't find any evidence linking him to Carrie's disappearance. The case remained cold for 17 months until September 1983, when a contractor renovating the Mant family's back porch made a grisly discovery: skeletal remains buried in a shallow grave. Dental records confirmed it was Carrie. She had died from blunt force trauma with bleeding inside the skull and neck injuries. Her body was found curled into a fetal position and still wearing the clothes she had last been seen in. The discovery reignited suspicions around the Mant family, especially Johnny, who was reportedly present when the body was found and became visibly shaken and vomited. But again, with no hard evidence, police couldn't make an arrest. Then came another name, Jose Ferreira, a teenager from the neighborhood who had attended the party at the Mant house. He was seen crying near the gravesite days after Carrie's body was found. When questioned, he denied involvement, saying he had just come to pay his respects. Incredibly, he remained close with Carrie's family over the years, visiting their home, sharing meals, even sitting at their kitchen table. Carolyn saw him as a kind friend who cared about Carrie and their family. She never suspected he might be her daughter's killer. That all changed on October 11, 2015. Now 51 and estranged from his wife, Ferreira made 3 confessions in a single day. First, he called his wife and admitted to killing Carrie. She immediately went to the police. Then he phoned a crisis hotline and described the crime in disturbing detail. He said he couldn't take it anymore and was torn between turning himself in or ending his life. Finally, he called a Milwaukee news station, WISN 12, and told a reporter he had killed Carrie Ann Jopek in 1982. 2 days later, Ferreira turned himself in and provided a full confession to detectives. Ferreira said he met Carrie at the party at the Mant house. He offered her a joint, which she accepted but coughed on. He then asked her to go into the basement with him. As they began walking down the stairs, she hesitated and said, "I don't know if this is a good idea." He responded, "You are going downstairs," and pushed her. She fell, striking the railing and wall before landing on the basement floor. According to Ferreira, she appeared unconscious and he groped her, not realizing she was already dead. Her neck had been broken. In a panic, Ferreira dragged her body to the exterior cellar door, dug a shallow grave under the porch, and buried her. He admitted that her long hair was still visible, so he returned later to cover her more thoroughly with dirt. Ferreira told detectives he was haunted by Carrie for decades. Carolyn said he even told her the same thing back in 1983, shortly after her daughter's remains were found. She firmly believes it was Carrie's spirit that finally pushed him to confess. "It wasn't the police that solved this case, it was my daughter," she said. His confession was detailed and matched evidence from the original investigation. However, after so much time had passed, and with limited forensic evidence, prosecutors worried they might not secure a murder conviction. Rather than risk Ferreira walking free, they offered him a plea deal, which he accepted. Ferreira pleaded guilty to attempted second-degree sexual assault with force and false imprisonment. Even though the statute of limitations on those charges had expired, he agreed to still be charged with them. In January 2016, he was sentenced to 7 years in prison, the maximum amount for those two charges combined. Ferreira's attorney claimed that his mental illness and fear of losing his wife had prompted the public confessions, hoping it would win her back. Carrie's family was devastated to learn that the man they had welcomed into their lives was responsible for her death. Still, they found solace in finally having answers. "Now she can rest," Carolyn said, clutching Carrie's 7th grade photo. Many were outraged by the light sentence, calling it a slap in the face. But for Carrie's parents, justice, even limited, was better than silence. After 33 years of pain, denial, and waiting, they finally knew the truth. Carrie's case had gone cold, but her memory never did, and in the end, it may have been her spirit that brought her killer to justice. Christina Spicuzza, who went by Christy, was born on March 19, 1983, in Monroeville, Pennsylvania, to Joseph and Cindy Spicuzza. At age 38, she was a devoted mother of 4, still living in Monroeville and engaged to her fiancé, Brandon Marteau. Christy was known for her loving nature, her sense of humor, and her deep commitment to her children and family. She was working as an Uber driver in and around the Pittsburgh area to help support her family when her life was taken in an act of senseless violence. On the night of February 10, 2022, Christy accepted a ride request through Uber. What she didn't know was that while the account used to order the ride belonged to Tanaya Mullen, it was actually her 22-year-old boyfriend, Calvin Crew, who would be her passenger. Crew, an ex-con recently released from jail on a firearms charge, was picked up by Christy in a dark gray Nissan Sentra. Part of the ride was captured on Christy's dashcam inside the car. When Crew got into the back seat, he was strangely wearing a light-colored hoodie and a black mask that only revealed his eyes. Minutes into the ride, he reached forward, grabbed Christy's shoulder, and pressed a black handgun to the back of her head.
Sorry?
Keep driving.
You've got to be joking.
Keep driving.
What are you doing?
This is a gun. Keep driving.
No, it's not. Stop. Come on, man. I got a family. What are you doing?
I got a family too. Now drive.
What are you doing?
Drive.
Please stop.
Drive the car, miss.
Why are you doing?
Christy began to plead with him. "Come on, I have a family. I'm begging you. I have 4 kids. Crew showed no remorse, replying, "I got a family too. Complete the trip."
To where?
Complete the trip.
I cannot do that.
Complete the trip.
Why are you doing this?
Complete the trip.
Please.
Complete the trip.
Please
drive.
stop. Please, I'm begging you.
I'm begging
I have
you,
4
drive the
kids.
car.
What are you
Drive
doing?
the car. Complete it. Now drive.
As she cried and begged for her life, Crew continued to hold the gun to her head. He then reached forward again, snatched her cell phone from the dashboard, and placed it in the back seat. "Keep driving," he said. "If you drive safe, everything will be all right." Seconds later, he noticed the dash cam and pulled it down. The footage ends there. What happened after the video cuts out is not visible, but by the next day, Christy hadn't returned home. Her fiancé, Brandon, knew something was wrong and reported her missing. Sadly, 2 days later, her body was discovered in a wooded area off Rosecrest Drive in Monroeville. She had been shot once in the back of the head and was found face down, still wearing her COVID mask. A 9mm shell casing was found nearby. Her vehicle was located the same day, abandoned on 4th Street in Pitcairn, with her purse still inside and the dashcam missing. 4 days later, police recovered the missing dashcam just a tenth of a mile from where Crew had been picked up. It contained damning footage that captured the entire encounter. They also found text messages from Crew's girlfriend, Tanaya Mullen, sent during the ride. One message read, "I'm not going to jail if we get caught." When questioned, Crew told investigators that a woman in a dark gray car had driven him to check his mail and that he returned home by bus. However, no surveillance footage corroborated his story. The location data, dashcam footage, and text evidence pointed squarely at Crew. He was then arrested and charged with first-degree murder, kidnapping, robbery, and tampering with evidence. In February 2025, he was convicted on all counts. Although prosecutors pursued the death penalty, Christie's family requested mercy. During sentencing, her mother, Cindy, said, "You should have the death penalty, but we showed mercy." Crew refused to appear in court for his sentencing and has maintained his innocence with plans to appeal. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 13 to 26 years for the kidnapping and robbery. Christie's fiancé spoke during sentencing, calling Crew a coward who wouldn't even face the family he destroyed. The murder of Christy Spicuzza shocked the Pittsburgh area and led to renewed concerns over rideshare driver safety. Despite that horror of her final moments, her legacy endures through the love of her children, her family, and the community that refuses to forget her. At 24 years old, Jeanette Diana Ralston was living in San Mateo, California, with her husband and 6-year-old son. Originally from Germany, Jeanette had made a life for herself in the Bay Area, having also lived in Benicia, California. Friends described her as a vibrant woman and a loving mother. On the night of January 31st, 1977, she went out to the Lion's Den bar on Almaden Road in San Jose. As she left the bar just before midnight, her friends noticed she was with a man they didn't recognize. The following morning, the owner of an apartment building on Graham Avenue, just a 5-minute drive from the bar, noticed a Volkswagen Beetle parked in the carport. When she looked inside, she saw Jeanette's body shoved in the back seat. Her long-sleeved blouse had been tightly tied around her neck. She had sadly been sexually assaulted and strangled to death. The killer had attempted to set the vehicle on fire, but the fire didn't catch. At the time, investigators recovered multiple pieces of evidence, including a pack of Eve cigarettes with a visible fingerprint. But despite the promising leads, the case went cold for nearly 5 decades, leaving her son to grow up without answers. In 2024, the Santa Clara County District Attorney's Cold Case Unit and the San Jose Police Department's Homicide Unit took another look at the case. It was, as one detective described, a Hail Mary. They simply reran the fingerprint from the cigarette pack, and this time it returned a match. The print belonged to Willie Eugene Sims, a former U.S. Army private who had been stationed at Fort Ord in Monterey County at the time of the murder. Further digging revealed that in 1978, 1 year after Jeanette's murder, Sims was convicted of assault with intent to commit murder in Monterey County. After serving time, he left California, which meant his DNA was never added to the CODIS database, making it harder to connect him to earlier crimes. Investigators traced Sims to Ashtabula County, Ohio, where he had been living quietly for years. In early 2025, a team of investigators traveled to Ohio with the help of local authorities and collected a fresh DNA sample from Sims. The Santa Clara County Crime Lab later confirmed that Sims' DNA matched material found on Jeanette's fingernails and on the long-sleeved shirt used to strangle her. On May 6, 2025, 69-year-old Sims was arrested. He is currently awaiting trial in Santa Clara County and, if convicted, faces a sentence of 25 years to life in prison. He would have been around age 21 at the time of the crime. The news was shared with Jeanette's son, Alan Ralston, who was just 6 years old when he lost his mother. On social media, he posted a heartfelt message thanking law enforcement for never giving up. "You have undoubtedly made a 6-year-old kid happy after all these years," he wrote. "Thank you from the bottom of my heart on a job well done." In early 2025, 16-year-old Miranda Corsette was a young mother living in Gulfport, Florida, raising her 11-month-old baby while staying with her grandmother. Miranda was homeschooled and described by those who knew her as quiet and naive. Tragically, the decision to meet up with a man from the dating app Grindr would prove to be deadly. On February 14th, she connected with 35-year-old Stephen Gress and decided to meet up with him. Using Uber, she caught a ride to his duplex located at 2708 27th Avenue North in St. Petersburg. After returning home, she went back the very next day and remained at the residence for several days with Gress and his domestic partner, 37-year-old Michelle Brandeis. 5 days later, on February 20th, a dispute erupted when Gress accused Miranda of stealing a ring that he claimed held sentimental value, as it was the first possession he had acquired after serving time in prison. This would set in motion a series of very disturbing and horrific events. Over the following days, Miranda was subjected to severe abuse. Gress, by his own admission, said he beat her repeatedly and even sent disturbing nude photos of Miranda's injuries to multiple people, including his own mother. The final image showed Miranda's face so swollen she was nearly unrecognizable. Sometime between February 20th and the 24th, Miranda was killed. Gress would tell police that Brandeis forced a billiard ball into Miranda's mouth using a sock and then wrapped her head in plastic. He claimed he told Brandeis not to cover Miranda's nose, but claimed he couldn't reach her in time to save her life. Brandeis told police she feared Gress and only acted out of self-preservation. On February 24th, after Miranda's death, Gress and Brandeis, assisted by a third roommate, transported her body to Brandeis' mother's house in Largo, Florida. There, Gress allegedly decapitated and dismembered her body, while Brandeis placed the remains into trash bags and placed them in the trunk of their car. They then went out and celebrated Brandeis' birthday with dinner and miniature golf. Later that evening, they drove the remains roughly 50 miles to Ruskin in Hillsborough County and dumped them in a dumpster at 2893 14th Avenue Southeast. On March 5th, Gress was arrested on unrelated charges involving drug possession and threatening Brandeis with a harpoon. The next day, a witness came forward and informed police that Brandeis had confessed to being involved in Miranda's murder. Gress was then officially charged with kidnapping and later murder. 3 days later, Brandeis turned herself in. Both were charged with first-degree murder and kidnapping. Since no remains were found, prosecutors are using forensic evidence, including DNA and blood, from the Largo residence where the dismemberment occurred. Thankfully, one of the individuals that had received the disturbing photos provided them to police. Meanwhile, investigators went to the dumpster to recover her remains, but unfortunately, the trash had already been relocated to the Hillsborough County's Resource Recovery Facility on Falkenberg Road in Tampa and incinerated. What is most infuriating is that at least 6 people, including Gress's own mother, reportedly knew about Miranda's captivity and abuse but chose to do nothing. A neighbor even heard Gress say, "This little bitch stole my ring and won't give it back, so I've been beating her ass." Prosecutors are seeking the death penalty for both individuals, citing aggravating factors such as the calculated nature of the killing and the prolonged torture Miranda endured. Miranda's grandmother, who is now caring for the baby, has expressed gratitude to those who helped uncover the truth. Though not ready to speak at length, she acknowledged the man who reported Brandeis' confession. Miranda's cousin shared frustration on social media, expressing how the family felt dismissed by law enforcement due to Miranda's troubled background. She feared Miranda had been groomed and trafficked. At this time, Stephen Gress and Michelle Brandeis remain in jail awaiting the outcome of the case. Vicki Marie Radig was born on September 25, 1960, in San Bernardino County, California, to Elmer and Alice. By the time she was 20, Vicki was living in Nevada and had graduated from Boulder City High School, class of 1977. She was described as a quiet, kind, and gentle soul, someone who left a lasting impression on those who knew her. However, in March of 1981, she strangely went missing. She was last seen with her boyfriend, 23-year-old Walter Bradley DeMent. When questioned, DeMent told Vicki's family they had gotten into an argument and that she had run off. But 2 days later, Vicki's body was discovered in a desert area near the 900 block of Boulder Highway in Henderson. Her death was quickly ruled a homicide after the coroner determined that she had died from blunt and sharp force trauma. DeMent was considered a person of interest early on, especially since his story was very inconsistent, but at the time, investigators lacked enough evidence to press charges. Though he remained on investigators' radar, the case eventually went cold. He then died in 2007. Regardless, investigators never gave up, and in 2021, the Henderson Police Department's Cold Case Homicide Unit reopened the case and submitted DNA swabs collected during the original investigation for new forensic testing. The results confirmed that DeMent was a contributor to the DNA found on Vicki's body. In 2022 and 2023, additional items were tested, and again, no DNA was detected from anyone other than Vicki or DeMent. The Clark County District Attorney's Office reviewed the case and determined that DeMent was the only viable suspect. Unfortunately, no photo of DeMent was released. Based on the DNA evidence and inconsistencies in his original statements, investigators concluded that if DeMent were alive today, he would likely be charged with 1 count of open murder. This type of charge allows the jury or judge to determine the appropriate level of culpability based on the evidence presented at trial. After more than 4 decades, the Henderson Police Department officially closed the case in 2025. Providing long-awaited answers for Vicki's surviving family. Vicki's former classmates shared their memories and condolences on social media. One wrote, "She was a very nice, pretty, gentle, quiet girl. This was such a terrible loss, and I am glad they have solved it. My thoughts and prayers are with the family. She is gone, but not forgotten." While justice came too late for the courts, Vicki's case is no longer an open wound.